Hello, and welcome to Your Vote Counts, a public, informational, nonpartisan program designed to get the public acquainted with the candidates vying for the 2024 general election races of Kaiser City Mayor, Kaiser City Council, Marion County Sheriff, Senate District 9, House District 7 through 23, and Congressional Districts 5 and 6. These interviews come to you through the producers at Capital Community Media, with collaboration on questions and moderators from Association of University Women, with collaboration on questions and moderators from Association of University Women and League of Women Voters, Marion and Polk counties. All candidates for these races were invited, and 65% chose to participate. Candidates did not receive the questions prepared by the League of Women Voters ahead of time. Candidates were invited to prepare a 2-minute opening addressing their background and qualifications for the office and 2-minute in length closing remarks. So let's get started. I am Mickey Varney from the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties, and I would like to introduce Kevin Mannix, who is running for House District 21. Candidate Mannix, welcome, and we look forward to your opening remarks. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. Some folks may remember that I previously served in the Oregon legislature for 5 terms, 10 years, but I left in January 2001. And then the voters of House District 21 gave me a chance to return to the legislature in November 2022 when I was elected to represent House District 21. And I began service in January 2023 after an absence of 22 years. I think I've built on that experience and background so that I'm prepared to continue to represent the folks from Kaiser and North Salem, which are the areas that are included in this district. In terms of my background before getting into the legislature, my career includes a year as a law clerk for the Oregon Court of Appeals, service as an assistant attorney general for Oregon, then in Guam, service as an assistant attorney general for the U.S. territory of Guam, came back to Oregon. I served as an administrative law judge, and then I went into private practice. Now, for 38 years here in Salem, I've had my own law firm. We do business law and we represent nonprofits. And I do have a staff of 4 attorneys who work for me. That's given me an opportunity to re-engage in the citizen legislature process. And during the almost 2 years now that I've served, we've had substantial success in addressing some critical issues. Most significantly, the combination, excuse me, of homelessness, mental health issues, drug addiction, all of which are combined in the homelessness issue. And we did push out legislation which reformed Measure 110, and I was pleased to be a member of the team which brought about that legislation this early this year.
Okay, thank you. And now we would like to hear your views on some of our questions we have. First of all, how would you ensure that Oregon has the resources to provide all Oregonians with access to affordable, quality health care?
I think that is a critical issue, and I do think that we have a combination of the Oregon health plan, which is accessible and available based on income and capability. We also have the private sector plans. I want to make sure that the private sector plans, which are paid for by employers, continue to develop, continue to be available, as that is a private sector component of the plan, which helps fund it. But I'm also concerned about helping those folks who fall between the cracks, who don't quite yet qualify for the Oregon Health Plan. And I want us to change the qualification standards to broaden the capability of folks and to include in that what I'll call the cracks in the sidewalk, so to speak, people falling through the cracks who may have had coverage under private health care, but then they haven't yet qualified for the Oregon Health Plan. They've lost their coverage. I think we should have a continuum of coverage, a continuum of coverage so that no one is left without health insurance. That's going to require that the state revamp its Oregon Health Plan, and I'll be supportive of that.
Okay, thank you very much. Um, Next question. What is the role of House District 21 in helping cities and counties with policy and funding issues dealing with houselessness? What ideas do you support?
Well, in fact, I think it's not just House District 21. I think it's my job as a state representative to be aware of the issues confronting the entire state. Certainly, I represent my constituents from Kaiser and North Salem, and I work hard to be focused on their immediate issues. But they share a lot of the concerns that everybody else has in the state. And it's also my job as a state representative to be aware of issues that may not confront my district. For instance, rural Oregon has substantial issues with water access. And the Klamath Basin has issues about how we are going to handle fisheries. And where you have those issues all over the state, I need to be attentive to that. But on the homelessness issue, and I refer to it that way because houselessness is one part of it. And we can be providing housing as a transition, but we also need to provide the necessary support services so folks can, who are capable of being able to return to the working stream of folks, be able to engage in work with sufficient training and assistance. So as we address that issue, I think the city of Kaiser has demonstrated how they deal with the immediate symptoms, which is they are pretty aggressive about reaching out to the folks who are out there who are homeless and encouraging them to come in for services. The city of Salem does okay, but doesn't do as well. And I think it needs to be more supportive of the nonprofit organizations that are addressing this issue. There's a bit of bureaucratic resistance sometimes in the city of Salem that I don't see in Kaiser. Now, I'm not going to blame the employees, I'm going to blame the process. And we need to be attentive to how our cities can be engaged. And in my district, which is really two cities, we need to be helping the cities address those issues. And one is the mental health crisis. Our mental health system needs additional funding for facilities and for staffing and for programs. The other is the drug addiction crisis. And we started to address that with House Bill 4002, which we just passed, which as of September 1 says we will hold people accountable for using street drugs. It's not going to be a legal thing to do anymore. On the other hand, in terms of the illegality, we've said this is an unclassified misdemeanor, and the preferred approach is treatment as opposed to incarceration. But we need to have the pressure point to bring people in. We need to be compassionate about providing those services. And my concern now is we need to put additional resources, and that means tax dollars, excuse me, into the treatment programs. And that includes, again, just as in mental health, facilities, training, staffing, and outreach. But we do now have the opportunity to say to folks who are addicted, this is not an acceptable situation. We're not going to have you out there in a camp somewhere. We want to bring you into recovery.
Thank you very much. Well, since you mentioned fish and water, what do you see as the future of hydropower in Oregon?
I think we've made a mistake, not me, because I wasn't there when we did it, but hydropower has not been treated as a renewable resource among all the power sources, which I think is a foolish mistake. We need to be encouraging hydropower, but we also need to be requiring that the use of hydropower be done intelligently with sensitivity to our fisheries. We've made great progress in that area, and I do think additional things can be done. That includes developing water gathering systems where I won't call it a wake. It might be, excuse me, a lake. It might be a subsurface water that is maintained. We need programs where there is sufficient flow of water for the fish to get upstream, but also where the flow of water can be used by the existing dams to provide power on a predictable basis. So hydropower is there. It's a wonderful natural resource, but we need to make sure that that natural resource is supportive of our fishery capability, not destructive.
Makes sense. Thank you. All right, building on the energy concept here, Oregonians depend on reliable and affordable energy resources while meeting climate goals and supporting strong economic development. How will Oregon meet our state's growing need for electricity while addressing competing priorities between energy producers and energy distributors in urban and rural areas?
It is a very challenging issue area. I'll start out by saying we need to recognize and continue existing sources of energy. Yes, the hydroelectric power dams. Yes, we do have some now cellular energy generation, and we need to continue to encourage that. We also have some wind power energy generation. We need to encourage that. But we also need to be sensitive to the effect all of this has. I know Marion County, for example, said, well, you can put cell yards out there, but don't take over our agricultural fields. And now there is a response to that saying, well, how about having nurseries that are established underneath the cell phone systems? So you've got agriculture going on with energy generation. Those kinds of creative solutions need to be encouraged and supported. At the same time, the existing energy facilities are needed as we transition. So I'm not in favor of shutting down the fossil fuel production facilities that are out there. I think they need to be kept as uh, clean as possible environmentally, but we also need that power as we go through a transition to in expanding wind power, expanding solar power, expanding hydropower, all in an environmentally sensitive way. And it's not an easy answer, and we need to have rolled up our sleeves to work on it.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What elements do you support to ensure financial stability in Oregon's future?
This is a challenging question because we have several methods of taxation which are sometimes are at counter purposes. The voters of the state 9 times have make it clear that they don't want a sales tax. All right. Then we have to look at the corporate income tax, the business income taxes, and the personal income taxes, and make sure that we don't overtax folks so they cannot survive economically. So, in fact, they can't. We want them to prosper economically. We want to use those resources efficiently. I think the biggest challenge right now is going to be in transportation, where electric vehicles are not really paying their fair share because only some folks have volunteered for a program where they can actually pay for miles run on their electric cars. Most electric vehicles are not paying for our roads. And we're going to have to come up in the 2025 session with a comprehensive plan so that we understand the gas tax is no longer the only way to pay for the roads, and fossil fuel vehicles will pay the gas tax, but all vehicles need to pay some sort of road usage charge, which is fair and balanced, and it might be based on the weight of the vehicle. That is another consideration in terms of the wear and tear on our roads. So we're going to need to be dynamic about this, and we can't close our eyes. We need to be able to pay to maintain and develop our roads. That's one of the typical areas where our funding mechanism is going to be under challenge.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is describe both a positive and negative impact if there is expansion of urban growth boundaries within the state in order to make room for a major semiconductor or advanced manufacturing projects.
I think the critical element here is to respect the capability of agriculture. We have some of the best farmland in the world, especially in the Willamette Valley, and we need to protect that farmland. In so doing, it is okay to identify areas that are not conducive to farming and to say, well, this area, farmers will all tell us, is no good for farming. All right, it's soil, it's land. There may be some appropriate sectors that we can open up for urban growth, but when we do that, we need to make sure that we have not reduced Oregon's strongest economic capability and strongest humanitarian capability, which is agriculture and farming. And I will be steadfast in protecting that, but I'll also be smart about saying there are places where adjustments can be made, which will not take away farming.
Well, thank you. Well, in the minute we have left here, tell me a little bit about House District 21. What do you see happening in the areas of population growth, emergency preparedness, and financial challenges?
We've got fine people who work for our city governments here in Kaiser and Salem, and they have to follow the orders of the policymakers. And following those orders, I do think the cities of Kaiser and Salem need more assistance from the state in meeting the challenges that they have because the property tax limitations have hurt their capability to deliver. So I support a statewide legislative package because that's how we're going to have to get the votes, which provides some support for our communities in areas where the state owns property and doesn't pay property taxes. a payment in lieu of taxes, a formula where we do provide funding to Kaiser and Salem and other communities throughout the state, where the state, which does have resources, is helping those communities deal with the challenges of local government, which includes the challenges we've been talking about, including, I think the heart of the matter is homelessness and then crime.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. Um, so, um, Candidate Mannix, now you're invited to share your 2-minute closing comments about your goals for this office if elected, or other remarks you wish to share. Please also share your contact information so the public can reach out to you.
I'll mention first that we can be reached through our website, which is Mannix for Oregon, and that's FOR, not the number four, Mannix for Oregon. And we also have our email address is mannixfororegon.com. Our phone number is 503 308 8668. So you can always reach us that way. The campaign office is actually at my law firm, 2009 State Street, Salem 97301. But I do think the other ways of reaching us work very well. Hetty Guptill is my fine campaign manager, and she's prepared to respond and also to connect you up with me as to any issues that arise. In terms of my campaign, I think what I've tried to emphasize is the collegial approach I take to legislating. I've been very successful in getting legislation passed because I work not only with my Republican colleagues, but with my Democrat colleagues across the aisle. And I think the leadership has recognized that in the appointments that they've given to me to various committees. So I can roll up my sleeves and sit down, identify issues, and work towards a collegial response. That comes out of, I think, my background also as a nonprofit and business attorney, where the key is to resolve problems, not to simply argue and bicker, but resolve problems. And I'm pleased that I've been able over the years to be very successful. In my first 10 years as a legislator, I pushed through 135 bills. They're listed on my website to passage, passed the House and the Senate, signed by the governor. And that is a record number of legislation for any single legislator, no matter how long a person may have served. And I did it by listening to my colleagues, sitting down with them, and working for solutions. We just saw that happen with our reform of Measure 110, where I was a member of the team that brought Democrats and Republicans together to pass reform legislation, which just went into effect September 1. I hope folks will continue to support me so I can carry on with this work beginning in 2025. And thank you for listening.
Well, thank you, Candidate Mannix, for our interview today and for sharing your thoughts on these important issues.
You're very welcome.
And many thanks to Capital Community Media for their extensive technology and production skills used to create this program. Thank you to the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties for the design and preparation of the program. And thanks to you, the public, for watching in order to become a more informed voter. For more local, state, and national voter information on candidates and ballot issues, visit vote411.org after September 30th when candidate data is posted. You have until October 15th to register to vote or make changes to your registration. Ballots go out on October 16th and will be accepted and counted if postmarked before or on November 5th. Elections matter. Remember to vote because your vote counts.